Welcome to the Tricord Advisors podcast, where we answer life's hard questions to help you make smart decisions with your money. I'm Jeremiah Lee, and this is Randy Barkley. We're both certified financial planners. I'm also a California licensed attorney. All right, so I had someone ask me this week, how do I know if my financial advisor is doing a good job? I think it's a great question. And what was interesting in that conversation, it was a friend I've known for years, is it's hard to answer that in one moment. Here's the one metric, because our industry is exceedingly diverse. So I guess the first question, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is how do I evaluate my financial advisor? How do I know if they're doing a good job? How do I know if I'm getting good advice? And the first part I would actually start with is not, am I beating the market? Or how do my investments do?
That's probably the worst.
It's the wrong question.
It is.
It's the wrong question.
It's absolutely the worst question.
And I think a good place to start for this conversation is probably, what does a financial advisor do? And there's not one answer. There's a massive difference between someone who is in wealth management, kind of where we are, that we're doing holistic wraparound services, we're doing lots of things, we'll talk through that, and someone on the other end who is just doing, I would like to manage your one account, or I would like to sell you an annuity, or I'd like to sign you up for insurance. Because they'll all use the phrase financial advisor, but there's a vast difference in the training, the expertise, and the services, and also the fees. I mean, what you're paying at different ends of this is vastly different. And to want to say, what's the value here? So I guess the first question I should probably ask, that friend going back, to say, what do you want your financial advisor to do?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when you ask that question, they don't know enough about our industry. They don't know enough about the services that we provide to really be aware of what they're even asking for.
Yeah.
Now, most times when people say financial advisors, the first thing that comes to mind is investments. That ultimately is, that's the 2-second conversation. And so what is it that you like right now? What do you think about the economy? What do you think about the current politics? I mean, they go down the road instantly right now. And I want to separate as best as I possibly can financial planning from wealth management. Our mantra is wealth management. That's on our cards. That's on the marquee on our door. And wealth management needs to be understood by clients that it encompasses far more than investment work, right?
Yeah. There's a number of clients that we've actually turned down because they were just looking for someone to manage their account.
Right.
And that's not, it's part of what we do, but it's not exclusive what we do. So in going through these, looking, we can start with maybe the investment side. Most financial advisors would manage an account for you. I think it's short-sighted to just take the account and invest it, because we don't know where you're headed, what your needs are. If you're, someone who is grandparent age, who has plenty of funds, or someone who is still building. So for us, it always starts with understanding the person,
right?
And part of that is understanding their balance sheet. How much money they have, what investments they already have.
I mean, it's the accounting. I mean, we go through and we build the information, and oftentimes that information is economic, right?
Yeah, the economic pieces. But the biggest piece, and where I always start with clients, with a new client, is their vision. Like, who do they see themselves becoming? Who do they want to become? Where are they headed? Some people that we work with are very charity minded. They say, I want to die with nothing. I want to give this stuff away. I don't want to run out of money, but I want to give this stuff away. I want to give it to my family. I want to give it to my friends. I want to give it to charities. That's what I want to do with it. Others say, this is the legacy. My parents left me nothing. I'm going to leave my kids as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Those are very different visions of where they want to go. And I think in understanding somebody's vision of themselves, what they're about, what they care about, where they want to accomplish, sets the stage for all those other services.
And money becomes a tool, not a weapon. And oftentimes I find that people use money as, they're almost they want to hire a gunslinger. They want to hire somebody to, take out the bad guys or their competition. And investing isn't that. And financial planning, wealth management is not that.
Yeah.
And going back to your comment, what is it you want your life to look like? If you're single, what does that look like? Are you going to get married? Are you married? Do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? Do you own a business? Do you have a portfolio of real estate? I mean, at the end of the day, what is it the legacy that you want? And there's so many pieces, so many elements that go into that picture, right?
Yeah. And the question, I guess, as we're talking through this to evaluate them, I would say, getting the vision of what you want, and then who do you want on your team? For some people, they know what they want. They're taking care of all of it. They
Right.
just want someone to do that stock thing,
Just do that, investing thing.
that's all they're looking for. And if that's the case, maybe that's all you need, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of big name investment companies that will do that for you. They'll assign an advisor to you.
Just to let you know, the listening audience, the people that are watching this, I mean, we do a very exhaustive search, and we do comparisons and analysis of people that are investment people. And what is their specialty, and what is it they are, and how do we compare them with each other? Because they're all kind of they're in a large category group, but they're also segmented. People that that work with just income versus growth versus technology versus real. I mean, there's all kinds of structures out there.
Yeah.
And our job is to kind of sort through all that information and to come up with the right way in which we do that. But that is just a part of what we do. And I think that's what you and I are getting to here, is what is it beyond that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And what are people looking for? So, we think of kind of the main pillars when people think of financial planning. Investments is a piece of it. Retirement planning. Will I have enough?
Right.
What's my retirement look like? That planning is a big deal. I often tell clients, between wherever we meet them and when they're 80, there's usually a lot of life in there. And so to say, retirement planning is a piece of it, but that's not it. You may be putting kids through college. You may be going on vacations. You may be wanting to purchase a first home or second home or investment properties. There's a whole lot of things that are going to happen between now and then. And so retirement planning, goal setting, goal planning, even just getting people organized. There's times where we do that as part of what we do, but I realize for some people, that's a huge value to get their life organized. So I think with when people are looking at what they need, some of that's the planning, some of that's the other, what I call the wraparound services. My background being an attorney, we knock out estate plans for people all the time.
Right.
And not just the, check the box, get a trust done, but really analyzing what do they need for where they're headed. What does their family need? And we get that in place. Insurance plan. There's so many services. The other one that I see a lot is tax. We don't prep taxes in our office. However,
we do tax planning.
We do a lot of tax planning to say, not just what did you do this year? What boxes can I check on my 1040 or different forms? But really, what should I be doing in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to really maximize my income and pay my legally required taxes, but minimize what is owed? And that, for some people, they're not interested in that. I would say I have not met anyone yet who couldn't use a tax tune-up,
right? Who
couldn't use an investment tune-up. And for us, when we think of financial planning and how do you evaluate your financial advisor, I think the question becomes like, how much support are you looking for? Some people are in the mindset, I'm doing it all myself and I just need a little boost. I think the people that really get value are saying, hey, I'm focused on living my life, earning the income through my job, spending time with my family, and I would like someone to come and advise on all of it.
And again, you and I both know that everybody's life is slightly different, but there are categories that are considered what I would consider fairly simplistic and straightforward. And then there are categories where people have more complexity to their life and they have more things that need to be dealt with. And they're dynamic. In other words, they're not going to remain the same for the rest of their life. There are circumstances. And again, our job is to, once a decision is made, once we come to a point where the client says, yes, I want that, that's my vision. And then our job then is to come alongside the client and to put all the pieces together, because that vision isn't just a turnkey. It isn't, you just don't put a key in the door and open it up and say, oh, it's right there. This is time honored. It takes time to build the structure in such a way that you can accomplish. Now, the other piece of it is it changes, right?
Yep.
Somebody gets a job loss. They lose their business. They get a divorce. They die. There's a child all of a sudden goes off the rails. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen that can make the plan different, have a different outcome. But having that relationship with the client and walking them through a time-honored relationship is really critically important to keep them on the rails.
That pivot in life. I mean, everyone is probably going to go through a pivot in their life at some point, right? There's going to be some either good or bad. There's going to be a pivot. And to be able to take your whole plan and retool it and say, here's where we're going. Even in a good example, we had clients that were moving out of state. That was their goal. That was their goal for years and years. They'd worked hard to get there. And then they had grandkids. And when it came time for them to move out of state, they said, we don't want to move out of state.
Oh, that changed everything.
We
Yeah.
don't want to leave these cute little grandkids. We want to be around here. And even though they had all sorts of opportunities because they had done good planning, because they had worked hard, it was a big pivot to say, well, I want a different life now. I have a different vision. And so the question I would ask, we talk about the question not to ask, am I beating the market? What was that? The question I would ask is, am I on track?
Mhm.
And that track, I think, means a lot. There's a lot built in there to say, does your advisor, if they can answer, am I on track? They would have to know what track you're supposed to be on, what your goals are, what your vision is. They'd have to know what structures they've already put in place to get you
Right.
there. They need to know what progress waypoints are included.
And that's something that we are intimately involved with. I mean, the appointment I had, I'm just thinking about yesterday's appointment. I met with these clients, and we've had a long-term, multiple years of we're structuring their real estate and getting it set up. They have an adopted child that they want to make sure that's cared for. And we spent 2 hours going through details, and very little did we talk about investing. It's much how we're structuring their estate going forward.
Yeah. And real estate is just a really good conversation. A lot of financial advisors, I feel, the ones especially that work on commission or that are really I just want to manage
Right.
your stocks, they don't know much, nor do they care much about
Well,
real
they don't
estate.
get compensated for that,
Sure.
right? And so therefore, if you're commission driven, and all of a sudden the client is very involved in something that doesn't benefit you directly, you have a tendency to kind of bring the client around to your products or your things that you can get more revenue. And candidly, that comes down to the fiduciary standard.
Yeah.
The fiduciary standard that you and I hold to is that should make no difference to us, right?
Yeah, we're here for the client's best interest.
Right.
And there's a number of reasons why you get to that fiduciary standard, different licensing. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next segment. But I think the idea is, say, if you hold that close relationship, there's a lot of our clients that real estate is phenomenal for them.
Yeah.
They've done really well because of the real estate. And that's a piece that we've advised them on, that we've guided them through, that we've assisted with 1031 exchanges and buying and selling different real estate pieces, because
helping them with refinance when the mortgage rates were
Yeah.
below 3%.
oh man,
We were saying, everybody, if we had a loan, let's redo it. Let's do it now. It's to lock in those low interest rates. And I sat down again, going back to this client I met, we looked at rates that were less than 2% for crying out loud.
Yeah. And so if we'll pause here in a moment for this segment, but the question is my advisor, how are they doing? How do I evaluate them?
Right.
If you're looking for a wealth manager who's going to advise you on mortgage rates, who's going to advise you on your real estate holdings, who's going to advise you on your estate and your taxes, and if that's what you're looking for, then that's a very different question than if you just want someone who's going to manage that one old IRA I used to
Right.
have.
Right.
So we'll talk more about this next segment. Come on back. We'll continue our conversation. Welcome back. We have been talking about how do you evaluate your advisor. We talked a fair amount about investments versus all the other services. There's a piece I want to kind of touch on, and you mentioned it in the last section, of being a fiduciary.
Right. That's a big word.
It's a big word, and it's a huge difference in the advice you're getting. People who have a fiduciary relationship are lawyers, trustees, some accountants, some financial advisors, not some financial advisors. That's a key one. And the idea is that they have to act in the best interest of their client.
Mhm.
My background being an attorney, that's drilled in your head from day one, to say, even to the attorney's own detriment, they should be working in the benefit of the client. That's the sole purpose. And that's why attorneys get usually paid by the hour. They get paid directly to them. They don't take commissions or things like that, for most of the way it's structured. Attorneys have their goods and bads, of course, right?
Of course. I mean, every industry has different structures, but by and large, what you're saying is that's what the public understands attorneys for, right?
That's right. And so when someone's giving you advice in a fiduciary role, that means they should be looking at your holistic picture and advising you on what they, based on their expertise, feel is the best option for you. And when you cross over that line to a non-fiduciary standard, there's a lot of financial advisors that are not fiduciaries.
In fact, the majority of them are not.
The vast majority of them are not. And in that, their role is, I compare it kind of to, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, type of thing, that they are investment people. So they will manage your stocks. And if you have real estate, well, you should probably sell that and just give us the money. We'll do stocks. Or if they're an insurance person, I've got an insurance solution for that. I've got an insurance solution for that. And those folks, provide good work at times, but they're not looking holistically. They're not always looking in the best interest of the client. They're looking in something that's suitable. They can't defraud someone and let them down the wrong path, but they're looking for a commission. They're looking for something that is in a sales role.
Mhm.
And as we've worked through this industry, you've worked in this industry for many years, that sales role, I feel, and you feel, is not the most ideal in a trusted relationship.
So you have to be careful what you're promoting. And at the end of the day, you promote what is in the best interest of the client. But always underlying, I'm always looking for, okay, who's getting paid what and how much? And I think that's really, really important to answer that question. So, we develop a roadmap for our clients, right? We develop and we constantly are reviewing, are we on the right track? You talked about it in the first segment. So vision is really important.
Right. Yeah. You got to know where you're going.
You got to know where you're going.
You got to have a plan of how you're seemingly planning to get there. And then are you on track for the timing? And the fees, just to touch on that, there's a lot of folks, I think that's a great, every first conversation I have with a potential new client, I would talk about fees.
Mhm.
I bring, because it's important to, one, have that out there. They understand what they're paying for, the value they're getting, but also how we get paid, how other people get paid. And I think the hard part of this industry is if you've ever worked with an advisor or called an advisor and if the fees never came up and it looks like you're paying them nothing, they're just helping me. It's naive, right? To think
it is naive.
And to know that really they are getting paid and they're probably getting paid on a commission, which probably mean on the back end, which probably means they have an incentive to get you into one product versus another that's going to get them a different commission.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a key question is to ask. It is, and the other item that's very different is people's background and education here.
Mhm.
To be a financial advisor at a large company that says we do that, you sometimes need to have nothing. Sometimes you need to have a bachelor's degree, and that just is a start. And your role could be fresh out of college, jumping in. That you're in the sales role. They want you to go out and gather people.
And your performance, so to speak, is based upon how much revenue you generate for the company.
Yeah, that's right. And as people will move into it, putting a kind of a salesy over here and the wealth manager over here, people will get a bachelor's, they'll get sometimes a master's in sort of finance. A big one in our industry is called a certified financial planner.
It's really the gold standard, and it's held out as the pinnacle for as far as financial planning certificates. There's other certificates that you can get, but the CFP, just to kind of back up a little bit, there are several courses that have to be taken, and you have to pass each one of those courses on the disciplines that we talk about in the financial planning industry. But at the end of the day, you also have to sit for the board.
Yep.
And the board is when I took it, it was a 2-day, it was 3 separate courses. And right now they've refined it a little bit, but it has about a 50% failure rate. So it's a very difficult,
it's very robust.
You've taken the bar as well.
Yeah, the
as
California
the
attorney bar as well as CFP. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how would you compare the knowledge and the difficulty?
Yeah. I mean, they're hard to compare because they're different.
Right.
But the CFP is a very significant exam. And for me, like even on top of that, you have to have SEC licensing. The SEC licensing is meaningful, but I would call that the bare minimum standard. Mm-hmm. And so someone who says I have a Series 65, I have a Series 7,
Series 6,
whatever they may have, great, but it doesn't mean a whole lot to me.
Right.
If someone says I am a certified financial planner, I know that they have a level across all the different disciplines, insurance and tax and investment and planning that is useful to somebody. And so I would, anyone looking out for an advisor, I would look at, what's their graduate, undergraduate degrees? Are they a certified financial planner? My background, I'm also an attorney. That adds another level of estate planning and tax ability there. A lot of people, which I'm not, but some people are CPAs. And so, at tax preparation, there's a great benefit there. So someone who's a CFP, certified financial planner, and an accountant, that's some good combos. Mm-hmm. And so if your advisor is in that world, they have some abilities that you can check. So part of this is my advisor doing well? Do they have the skill sets and abilities and experience to really guide you somewhere? Mm-hmm. The other piece we talked a little bit, we group our services into kind of a few buckets. One being vision. We talked about that, that has, clarifying where you're going, financial planning, retirement planning, income planning. It's all the kind of the planning pieces. The other one that we look at is growth. That's what a lot of people think of.
Yeah. So it comes down to what risk are you taking? What kind of risk? And of course that varies from client to client, age group to age group, and your total assets that you have and what percentage you can risk and what you can't.
Yeah. And are you moving forward? So there's the investments, your taxes, your real estate, people who own businesses, all those like that's all in that bucket of we're growing forward. We want to maximize what people do. And if your advisor's not, in that space, that's a good question. So vision and growth. The next is values. Mm-hmm. To say, usually we talk about estate planning, health planning, education planning, charitable giving. I'm amazed as I've gone in this industry. There are so many ways that people can give charitably
Yes.
that are different than what people think about. They think of just taking money out of their pocket and giving it to a charity. And there is a lot more tax efficiency out there. So there's huge amounts of value. If anyone's at all charitably minded, to a civic organization, to a church, to a university, you can do this better.
And depending upon how you receive your economics. So
Yeah.
if what you have is only a salary, you're probably going to give a portion of your salary. But if you are investors, or you have a business interest, or you have real estate holdings, and you have all these other things,
Yeah.
there's a wide variety of ways that you can give.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage people to give, right?
Yeah, and they could do better by their taxes. That's something if you're at all charitably minded, your advisor would need to be in that space with you, because there's a lot of value. The other one is protection, and this is something I think people skip over, don't think of initially. But crisis planning. What happens if there's a big crisis in your life?
Yeah, I just had we reviewed, and I asked the client to bring in all the declaration pages for their property and casualty insurance, their auto, homeowners, and such. And I went through it, and I said, after I reviewed all of it, I said, I don't see any mention of an umbrella policy here. And they were with one carrier. They had bundled their insurance, their auto and homeowners, together with one carrier. And I said, so I wrote an email, and I said, do you have an umbrella policy that I just missed? And she wrote back, she said, we've never thought about that. And I said, I recommend that you get some, and it's not that expensive, but it would provide, that's that crisis.
Yep.
If you have a car accident and all of a sudden somebody's injured and your insurance doesn't cover up to the damages that were caused, bodily injury or property damage, that could be devastating.
It can be. And those are simple fixes, but they're one of those things you do it on the front end. Was a penny of prevention,
Yes.
Versus a pound of cure. So the protection is a huge issue. So for us, it's vision and values, growth, and protection. Those are kind of the 4 buckets of things that we look on. So when someone were to look at us and say, as a financial advisor, as a wealth manager, are we doing well? We would want to say, well, are you on track?
Mm-hmm.
Are you on track with your visions? Are you growing? Are your values representing your life? Are you protected from emergencies? And when we hit all those buckets, we then say, okay, you're doing good. You're on track. But I think that's important for people to look at. If you're going to evaluate your advisor, you have to have a sense of what you need, what you want to get from them, and if they're staying with it. So if you missed any part of this episode, you can go to our website, tricorderadvisors.com. You can find the whole episode. You can also find us on YouTube.
May you grow in wisdom and knowledge. Thank you for listening.